Weekly Daily Wednesdays. KDE has released Plasma 5.8. Yes. Quit laughing, people still use KDE. And the Ubuntu collective absorbs another victim. Well, actually a member. All glory to the Hypnobuntu.
Let's Encrypt goes on a trademark rampage. Can't really fault him. And the Xorg Dev Conference is underway. I watched 5 minutes of a very boring NVIDIA dev talk.
You may not need a driver with your next Uber in the near future. All you need is Ubuntu. And Canonical and Western Digital are joining forces. If you want a small home server, they might get you covered.
As always, I'm Vince Stone here at LGC Actual, doing all this nightmare fuel under the Linux, joined every week all the way from Space Portugal.
Well, hello there.
Is Monsieur Pedro Mateos.
Yes.
And from the West Coast, Matthew Commando.
Matthew Commando, yep.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Great.
All this excitement, let's just get right into it, because KDE at 20. Yeah, that's what this says, and they've never addressed the 20 KDE thing. But they have released Plasma 5.8 LTS Beta. Well, that's great, for the 4, possibly 7 people who haven't realized that XFCE is the superior desktop manager. But, with this, you're going to get some widgets, some themes, and some phone integration. That's awesome. One thing I did like, way down at the bottom, is the right to left language support. Hashtag Salam. Well, Shalom on that business. Are we excited? Pedro, you love KDE and Plasma. You've switched to it, right?
I used to.
Okay.
I used to use KDE 3 point something, and then they introduced 4.0, and that was a mess. It only started being usable around 4.9, and then they did the exact same thing when the 5.0 series came out, and apparently it was the last version I tried. I think it was the 5.6 beta, and it was crashing all over the place. If you were using the NVIDIA drivers, compositing would enable and disable at random points. But with the 5.7 version, things are much smoother now. I don't know what they did, but they did something right. I tried the 5.7 version with KDE Neon, their own distro, which is based on Ubuntu 16.04. And I was positively surprised. If the 5.8 LTS beta that they're calling it is this stable, I might just start using that when it comes out to like Fedora 25 at some point, or I might just switch to KDE entirely.
That's a horrible idea, Strider.
Yeah, that won't make Martin Wimpress happy if you switch from it might. But yeah, we covered like this 5.7 a few weeks back, and I told you, like, if you had a previously bad experience with Plasma 5, then now is the time to try it out again, because it's starting to get really good. And I have Plasma 5 on OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. Yeah, I haven't had any bad experience with it. It's really great.
Sure.
I mean, it took them a while to get there. Like, it took them 7 releases to get to the point where it's actually usable. But now it's all good, and I don't think they have planned to ship Plasma 6 anytime soon. So when they do, I mean, we'll be
we know
over
how
again.
that song and dance goes.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think I speak for quite a small majority, or maybe a large majority of people. I was KDE curious. I started, didn't start with KDE, but I was definitely the KDE zealot in the 1X days. Then I'd switched over to something, went back to, just a window manager, then came back to KDE when they're like 4.0 is going to be sliced bread 2.0. Tried that, and that was kind of a miserable experience, so say we all, right?
Uh-huh. All right, Strider. What do we got coming up next?
Okay, next we have Uber, which starts to send driverless cars to their customers. So this is an experiment that's going on in Pittsburgh. Currently, they don't actually send driverless cars. They have engineers that are in the car, but the cars are self-driving. And what is the technology used in this driverless cars is running on Ubuntu. So that's kind of neat. It's coming from...
Wait a minute. I mean, you're just saying just because you see the Unity desktop, you know full well that Ubuntu can run on Windows 10.
Yeah, but I don't think that's Windows 10 running Unity.
Wake up, sheeple!
So yeah,
I mean, just imagine you get to a Huber and, we're running Windows 10, running Bash, running Unity.
That would be a bit of a stretch, yes. Anyway, that's coming from researchers from the Carnegie Mellon University. It's currently very experimental, but if you remember, like 3 years back, Google did the same thing. They had these self-driving cars, and it was also running on Ubuntu.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm hoping for is when this goes like in the wider use, like for the general public, I'm hoping this will be open source, because I'm not sure I want to trust self-driving cars that are running proprietary code.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I was absolutely just joking about it running Windows 10. It's obviously not if you're looking at the picture, which all this would be linked in our show notes if you want to take a look, because it doesn't have a screen saying Windows is restarting. That's definitely a thing. One thing I will say about the Uber cars, say what they want about their business practices, but they are using LiDAR, unlike Tesla. Come on, guys. But, yeah, maybe no surprise semi-trucks for them. It does have a nope switch, but yeah, that's kind of all we know. I did see something earlier this week about some company or one guy who was going to release like $1,000 plug-in module that'll turn any car, which couldn't be any car.
You mean the GeoHot thing?
Yeah.
George Hotz, yeah, the former PlayStation hacker that managed to get indicted by Sony and a bunch of other companies because of those hacks. But yeah, that was an interesting, turn any car that is compatible with that thing into a self-driving thing. Good work.
It'll be great, maybe. Man. I'll release one for Tesla. It's just a sticker you put on it.
It's not autopilot, you guys. All right. So since we're on the self-driving car bandwagon and a lot of the first pushes went from Google, let's move on to some Chrome OS. And according to AndroidCentral.com, putting Linux on your Chromebook is easier than you think. That's debatable.
It really is. And I'm just looking at this wall of text. And it's like, do the AndroidCentral.com people get paid by the word? Because this is like 4 lines.
Probably. Yeah, so this is just a very, very, very padded out tutorial for installing Crouton on your Chrome OS Chromebook, as the case may be, or Chromebox if you have one of those. And he goes through all the steps in painful detail on how you can set Crouton in either the integrated way or just having the chroot run completely separate of Chrome OS if you really want that. And he does warn against trying to run games on it because the 3D acceleration may not be anything spectacular, which anyone with a brain should know because it has an Intel IGP. So, yeah. So, the one line that caught my eye was, what you're seeing is a full install of Ubuntu 12.04 LTS at the time of writing. Mm-hmm. With the XFCE desktop environment running. 12.04? What?
Hey, man, it could be Debian stable. I mean, come on.
Yeah. This is the default for Crouton. You can also install 14.04. Seems to work okay. I've seen an issue on GitHub saying that people had mixed experiences with 16.04. Mm-hmm. On some devices it works, on some other ones it doesn't. I mean, it's hit or miss. They did mention running games on the Chromebooks. They didn't mention CSGO and Rocket League, and they
Wait a minute, are you trying to imply that my $200 Chromebook couldn't possibly?
I don't think they would run even with the non-Crouton integration mode, because they were talking about the Crouton integration, which is something I didn't know about before reading this article, and it's basically running Ubuntu in a Chrome browser tab.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, you're not going to get the same performance as if you were actually booting Ubuntu. But even if you boot Ubuntu, you're not going to run CSGO. Come on, I mean, it's not going to happen.
It's a source game. There are enough workarounds for source games nowadays that you can actually get them to play at like at the very least 30 FERPs. There's entire subreddits dedicated to like gaming on the low end boxes. So in theory, you should be able to, although why you'd want to in a Chromebook is beyond me.
Hey, what'd you do with Pedro, man? I mean, if you're a Linux user, the question of why you would do that, no, that should never cross your mind at any point. However, maybe you can help me out to explain this. I mean, I have a functioning Chromebook that, I bought from Google, and they said, haha, we're just dropping support for it, which they kind of do. Would it be an advantage to me to run Linux, or should I just stick with, because, they're still going to do the security updates to my Chrome OS, and, if you bought that for that particular use case, shouldn't that be, I mean, really, let's face facts, the only people I would suggest doing this are students stuck with Chromebooks.
Yeah, and at this point, if you really are stuck with one of those old Chromebooks that are not going to get any new stuff, just wait, keep getting those security patches. And once Google finally releases the whole Android app integration into Chrome OS, figure out how you can do that in regular Linux or using one of those Chromium OS ISOs. See if you can run the Play Store on that. Maybe?
Yeah. Anything extra?
Yeah.
No, this is nothing new here. I mean, Crouton has been here for a while, so it's basically, okay, yeah, you can install it on your Chromebooks. Good to know.
So, let's encrypt. And coming hot off the heels of their trademark dispute with Komodo, when Komodo attempted to trademark the term "let's encrypt" and failed miserably because Komodo got their tushies handed to them on a silver platter, and the fine folks at Let's Encrypt succeeded in that one. So now they are basically obligated to go out and find anyone who even remotely possibly infringes on that trademark and threatening to sue them, which is kind of what they did with a teeny tiny project that was just called Let's Encrypt.sh. I can see how that might get confusing, yes. Because if they didn't, even against such a small project, if they didn't really go after them and say, no, you can't do that, according to the American...
we're talking about Dehydrated, which was, not an official project, but definitely one of the scripts that a lot of people were using with Let's Encrypt. And, Let's Encrypt, they won their trademark battle with the Komodos and immediately turned around and sent a really, really nice letter that said, change your project name or we'll sue you out of existence email. That's one way of looking at it, which is the way it went down. And the guy's like, all right, that's cool. So it's called Dehydrated. The whole defending... your trademark and all that. Yeah,
in an American
has been done for a long time. But I think the big takeaway from this is this could bork a lot of things, couldn't it, Strider?
Yeah, if the people have running scripts that are using this dehydrated thing, it could break them because if you update the repo, it's going to change names. So currently there is like a bridge, so it won't break right away. I mean, stuff get deprecated all the time. I mean, this kind of stuff happens. I'm more comforted that now it's been made clear that this is not an official project of Let's Encrypt, because Let's Encrypt.sh is kind of confusing. I mean, you could think that this is official from the Let's Encrypt team, which is not. I mean, even the official script is not called Let's Encrypt anymore. It's called Search Bots. So, I mean, it's...
And really, at this point, it's preferable. It's preferable to just change the name and run a sed Let's Encrypt.sh by dehydrated/g. And done, because The alternative would be that Let's Encrypt would lose their trademark, and then everyone would have their SSL certificates basically invalidated until everyone else upgraded. Oh, they're not called Let's Encrypt anymore. Even worse now.
Yeah, man. At the end of the day, they could have just saved time and money by hiring the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that, yeah, Wimpy, WinPress got a new job. You know him, you love him. Part of the Ubuntu Mate, even though he calls it Mate sometimes. Project, yeah. Canonical kind of walked in. They're like, "Hey, sup?" And he's like, "Sup?" And they're like, "Good job." He's like, "All right." He's got a new role. What is he doing exactly, P-Man?
He is on the Ubuntu desktop team. According to him, he's going to be working on Unity 7 and Unity 8 because, let's face it, if you're being hired by Canonical to work on the desktop, that's what you're stuck with. Now, that got me thinking, maybe...
You mean to tell me they hired the guy that kind of created a project because Unity was just nightmare fuel? And
yes. Yep. And they basically went, you did a good job. Can you help us fix ours? And yeah, I'm kind of hoping maybe now the Unity DE will stop sucking as much as it does. But I know for a fact that it won't, because this is Canonical we're talking about. And as much as I respect Martin and all the work he's done with Ubuntu Mate, which I'm currently using, and the Mate desktop, which I'm still currently using, he cannot unfudge the mess that is Unity.
You never know, man. He might. Like his first day at the job, you know, it could just be like straight him like walking out of the UI area.
Scorched earth policy.
Like, he's like, all right, let's get started. We're just saying that because we love you.
If the Unity desktop is in his hands, well, with other people, obviously, but it would be a very good sign. I mean, he did an awesome job with Mate, and I expect that it will do the same thing with Unity.
He's definitely going to have that opportunity, because that's one thing the blog says is he now has access to future plans, and maybe he can be like, really?
Let's just put the kibosh on that right now.
I'm just a bit worried about Unity 8, the one that's supposed to be all convergence and mirror and all this kind of stuff. I know that if WinPress is working on Unity 8, it won't be a mobile operating system which can also work on the desktop. It will be a desktop operating system right from scratch. And this...
Well, you brought up Mir. So since we're on that topic, might as well talk about the Xorg Developers Conference. Yep, it's currently ongoing. It will be today, tomorrow, and Friday from the time of recording. And if you're catching this on Wednesday, it's still true. You can find all of the live feeds directly from the Xorg Foundation YouTube channel. Don't worry, there's a link in the show notes. You can just go there. You can get the today's live feed. It went on for like 8 hours, so there's plenty of time to catch up. I managed to big thanks to Orn for bringing this to my attention, because he pinged me on the Hangouts and said, I'm watching XDC 2016 and I'm almost falling asleep. And I'm like, wait, that's got a live stream now? All right, let's watch. And there was an NVIDIA developer, and it was very clearly a developer because he was talking like this. He was mumbling to himself and talking very, very fast. And I had a lot of trouble maintaining focus because my eyes just glazed over and what he was saying just became part of the background noise. Now, I get it. He probably wasn't going to be the person presenting the talk, but still, come on, NVIDIA. You have a lot of people who know how to give presentations.
You're just going to have to forgive Pedro. He cannot have his focus truly engaged unless there's a man in a Sonic the Hedgehog costume jumping around while people are playing some chiptunes in the background. But I was perusing their web zone, and I did see, it was like, you need to follow our anti-harassment policy. And I was like, okay, let's see what we can't get away with if we attend one of these. Guys always like, do not take harassing photos. Shrug emoticon on that, Strider. Help me
out. Yeah, sure. I mean,
do you go grrr?
Then you harassing photos.
Yeah.
I won't do it, promise. No, this is clearly targeted at people who know their stuff regarding either like driver developers or like contributors to Wayland, XOR, or that kind of stuff. If you're not that kind of person, then you won't understand any
But
of it.
even no, I was kind of getting what he was actually explaining things very well. It was just the tone at which he was doing so. Again, he was basically mumbling to himself. That got really annoying. And when the camera did sort of a panning shot of the audience, everyone looked so bored.
Well, that's why you got to take when they give you that cough syrup when you walk in the door, man. That's not for a cold. But maybe this will be the year that they'll just like burn it to the ground and like mirrors the future, or maybe somebody will ship Wayland. I don't know. It's an awesome project, and it's good that they're live streaming. I want to thank them for that, but I also want to thank everyone making this show possible. A little bit of a plug for all of you who do. We currently have 90 Patreons supporting not one, but 2 shows a week. You know, it's almost 2 hours of content. We got some rewards. Head over to patreon.com/Linux Gamecast if you like supporting people who Linux and do other stuff. Good. We got a few special things for Patreons, so go check that out. But let's talk about Microsoft.
Yes, it's that segment of the show where we basically just drop to our knees and let Microsoft have their way with us. Because Microsoft apparently, according to ZDNet, now tops Google, Facebook, and a few others in GitHub contributions. Yeah, Microsoft has contributed the most lines of code to open source projects on GitHub. And that's good, but how about dropping those lawsuits regarding quote-unquote patent infringement against Linux? How about those, Microsoft?
No, man. All right, Strider, explain this to me. Is this just Microsoft like getting Floss software to work with their proprietary wares and maybe like a sprinkling of .NET stuff? Does that explain the contributions?
Yeah, well, they did open source .NET, they did open source SQL Server.
And the PowerShell.
Yeah, and the PowerShell, and all these tools, and what they are, it's just server-side products.
Mm-hmm.
It's all meant to like run websites or manage databases or like servers. Well, yeah, it's basically server stuff, because they understood that in that field that Linux had won already, and if they wanted to stay in the field and to stay like relevant, they had to go with the open source movement, and they did, and it's very good that they did. But on the other hand, on the desktop, none of this is true. I mean, it's still the old Microsoft we know, like from 10 years ago. They didn't like make like gaming easier, like more open source. They didn't open source DirectX, for example. They didn't open source like, I don't know, Xbox stuff. I mean, there's still like the XNA stuff that's done by Flipit.
Oh no, they just deprecated XNA. Now, if you want to have
they
XNA games to the current day, yeah, you'll need Flipit.
I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see, but I mean, I think you're completely right, because of the DNAs, you know, when my boy Sriracha came in, and he was like, okay, because Ballmer was like, open source is cancer, it'll eat your children. That's not necessarily a bad thing if you don't like your kids. But, yeah, that just F open source, and they're doing this. But then, you know, if you've been using Linux BSD or whatever, or you're just an open source Floss zealot like myself, you're thinking, I mean, it's going to take a long time before you're going to go, what are you up to, Microsoft, right?
Yeah, well, okay, so we might continue talking about Microsoft, or more specifically about Lenovo. So, yeah, I mean, another messy story about Lenovo. You might remember, like, a couple of years ago with the Superfish stuff. And now one Reddit user, like, got all alarmed and everything and said, okay, Lenovo has blocked Linux users from installing Linux on their IdeaPad laptops and like the latest models, which is not entirely true because
Okay.
it's not locked. Well, there is something that is locked. The problem is they have this SSD read thing in the machine, in the laptop.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, you cannot disable it, and you cannot go into the BIOS or the UEFI.
Okay, yeah, I was about to ask you, why can't you disable it?
Oh, well, that's the thing. That's the thing that is locked by Lenovo.
They locked UEFI. Yeah.
They locked UEFI to this red mode on the SSD. And the reason you cannot install Linux on the laptops is not because it's locked. It's because Intel did not provide drivers for this red mode on the SSD. So Lenovo is to blame, but Intel is also to blame.
There's a few issues cropping up with this, and the article on the Register brings up a few of them. It's the first user that started the thread on Reddit. The first reply he got when he asked Lenovo, like, why can't I install Ubuntu on my Yoga 900? And they said, this system is a signature edition of Windows 10, even though it didn't say so in the product page anywhere, with the Windows 10 Home Edition installed. It is locked per our agreement with Microsoft. And then, the very next day, the guys from the Register got in touch with Lenovo, and Lenovo said, we're totally not locking people out of running other operating systems. It's just that in order to improve performance on the system, we decided to use an SSD as cache for the hard drive also present in the laptop. That way it does that weird sort of how SSHDs work, except there are no drivers for it under Linux. So it doesn't work. And yeah, like Strider and Ven already mentioned, you can't disable that RAID. It's a really, really stupid move.
Well, you can't disable it because you can't get in the BIOS to go flip, cut it off.
Yeah, precisely. They managed to screw around with the BIOS enough that you cannot go into the UEFI and disable RAID mode. Period.
So Lenovo basically walked in and was like, listen, you're the one that was dumb enough to buy a laptop from us after the Superfish thing. I mean, it's kind of on you, not on us. You've right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a Yoga. The Yogas are actually kind of picking up nowadays. So why in the world they would do this, I don't know.
They didn't expect people like Linux users to buy Yoga laptops probably. I mean, which is not like, maybe we'll see support for this in the future because Intel usually does bring support for their technology for Linux, but they're not they don't provide like perfect support all the time. So I don't know. This is kind of a gray area.
But you know what? If we do manage to get it unlocked, we can run another website on our desktop.
Oh, yeah, another Electron app. That is, this one is mainly targeted at developers. That is, developers that work with REST APIs. I know I do all the time. I mean, I work with REST APIs all the
so
day.
you work with them. What is a REST API? Because I have no idea.
REST API is a way to communicate with a website using only JSON. I mean, you send requests, and instead of being sent back HTML, you get JSON, which is basically only the data without like formatting and anything. So it's a way to have like a program communicate with each other in a very simple way using HTTP.
All right.
This is used like, I mean, you have like a Twitter API, you have a Facebook API, you have APIs for all sorts of stuff. And you can also very easily build your own APIs. So there are like some online services that do quite the same, but this will do the same thing locally on a desktop app, and you can like save requests. You can have like different workspaces for different projects. It will also generate code snippets for various languages. And regarding usability, it sure beats curl, which when you develop APIs and stuff like this, that's the stuff you usually use curl to communicate with APIs.
Right. So I can just head over to GitHub and clone this, right?
Unfortunately, you can't because I don't know, for some reason it's called closed source, and there is like a free version which is available right now, and there is a paid version. I don't know what's coming with the paid version because it's not available right now.
Yeah, it's going to come with sticker packs. So
it literally just says coming soon.
Coming soon, yeah. I don't know what's coming up.
We do have to give them props, though, because they say it's available for Mac, Windows, and Linux, not PC, Mac, and Linux, right?
Well, they're not game developers on Steam.
True. Okay. Now, since we love the Raspberry Pi, we got to talk about it, because it is kind of neat, man. It's a MAME cabinet that's really small and, effectively kind of useless. You can't really do anything with it other than, like, look how cool this is. Now this is on Adafruit, and they're just like, heads up, man, this is not a complete step-by-step guide. It's just something to look at and lust after. Because, again, it's not terribly practical, is it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I took this from the YouTube comments, but what is this? An arcade cabinet for ants? Which it is. I mean, it's maybe a bit too big for ants, but it's too small to be usable by humans. But if you got this on your kitchen...
if you played a video, you could actually see, like... Yeah. Yeah.
There
we go.
The guy in the YouTube video, they have this really small arcade cabinet, and they put it away, and just behind it, there's something that's just like...
You can say what you want, Strader. There's some hipster right now at a coffee shop playing with his.
Just foaming at the mouth. I want it.
I totally want this on my kitchen. That's... I mean, nothing beats that.
But what does this use? This uses the Pi Zero, right?
Yeah, the one you can't get anywhere ever.
You can get it now. I think they have it in stock on Adafruit, unless they got out of stock again. But last time I checked, they had it. You could order it.
But they're saying things like, the color screen right now with the downsampling has to do. I mean, that's kind of more expensive than any other piece. But you could do kind of like with a black and white screen. Maybe that would make more sense, or monochrome.
Yeah, the one thing that really caught my eye was they have a sort of Game Boy Micro right below the video on the Pi Girl, they called it.
Yeah, this is the other Pi Zero projects.
Yeah, and that one looks really, really interesting. I really hope to see someone actually take that fab and sell it as one piece with a battery, a good enough battery just to plug it in. And
I hear Samsung's got a bunch of extra ones.
I'm going to be building a Pi Zero on Saturday.
Okay.
Like the big one, not the Pi Zero one, but the actual big one. So this is like maybe next week I'll show you the one I've built.
I want a recording of it asking, what is my purpose?
All right. I can do that.
All right. Let's buy some hard drives in a box.
Another Pi project, which is coming from
about this one.
Western Digital and Canonical.
Yeah, we talked about this one before. Yeah.
Did we? I mean, because
yes.
I got the news like last week. It was made available. Like,
yeah, it's now available. What we had covered it before when it was first announced, and we were literally saying so. It's a Raspberry Pi that you plug a hard drive into. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's not the first time that Western sells a hard drive with the Raspberry Pi stuff included. I mean, I kind of want this project to...
I'm looking at it. I'm having a hard time because they want 79.99 wet, stinky American caches for this. And what do? You get a box with a spot to put a Raspberry or an Odroid in and a 1 terabyte hard drive. And all I was thinking was like... Let's see. I got a friend with 3D printer. I could buy some filament. Well, I can exchange some filament and for, a 6-pack of whatever and print that out and buy the 1 terabyte hard drive for like 40 quid. Slap it together and done with it.
It's a Western Digital hard drive. If you are buying a 1 terabyte black, then yeah, it'll cost you about $70.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, and you have to pay for the engineering costs and everything. You have this other software that is run like the Nextcloud software, which is kind of a own cloud equivalent. This is available for GitHub, but yeah, it still needs to pay for the engineering that went into this project.
Okay, all right. So, Grandma wants to buy this. Sell this to Grandma. Well, why should she buy it?
Well, she will have to buy the Raspberry Pi. There's still some assembly required. You can't just buy this stuff.
Grandma's a mad hack. You know what I mean? She's got lead skills, so don't worry about it. She's already got a Pi laying around. Come on. Why should she?
Yeah, you get your Pi, you get the box, you put the Pi into the box, and you should be able to plug this in. I mean,
you tell Grandma to call her grandson or granddaughter and have them set a Plex server on the Nextcloud.
Not exactly the same type of appliance.
No,
Plex
Pedro, you see,
servers.
Johnny runs Windows and he's been disowned from the family. Because Grandma only runs
okay.
Linux. So.
Well, then, I'm sorry, Grandma. This isn't for you.
All right, we tried, but we talked in your direction, so we like it when you talk back in ours.
Yes, and you can do that by going over to linuxgamecast.com, hitting the contact button on the navbar, filling out the form, picking LWDW if it's some feedback, or LGCW if it's some hate mail. So you can also leave us a comment on the Patreons, YouTubes, whatever social media. Just track down the original post, leave us a comment there. We'll get back to you. Or we might just feature it on the show, like we do with Mr. Matt here. He says, I have been enjoying your show for some time. On your last LWDW, we're talking about alternatives for Adblock Plus, uBlock Origin. There is a Pi project called the Pi Hole. I see what you did there. That is out-of-the-box DNS server that directs most of your network ad traffic to a localhost blank page. So it's literally just editing your routers. Well, it's a different router that it has a host file to negate all the ad servers. Thanks for the entertainment, Matt. He also left a link. You can go there. I was looking at this and I'm like, okay, so if you don't want to use uBlock Origin on your browser, be it Firefox or Chrome's or what have you, you can use HBlock, which is a SH script which updates your host file with they're getting close to like 50,000 ad servers, and it just nopes all the ads from those servers.
Yeah, quite a neat projects. I mean, it's a bit weird to redirect like all the traffics through the Pi. I don't know if it's how it works, but I mean, I'm okay with uBlock. It seems to be a simpler solution.
All right.
Host and I, man. Best way to do it.
Yeah.
Susie, oh man, that Violent Mirror writes in.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of forced him to send the feedback. I posted the feedback myself because he wouldn't do it otherwise. So I kind of tricked him into submitting.
He writes,
feedback.
Strikecore, HPE did not buy Susie, and Microfocus has bought Susie? Question mark? No period. But here's what did happen. There's a link, and he says, that's the closest to hate mail for LWDW you will get from me, in which Strider replied with a menacing, cackling laugh and rubbing his hands together.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. HP and Susie didn't, well, HP didn't buy Susie. They kind of merged together. But basically it's the same thing.
Even then, not exactly. That's actually what the article is saying. It's, no, Suze is still its own thing. It's just that teeny tiny bit of the company, it's technically HPE now.
So we're arguing semantics. All right. Brilliant.
Yes.
That's actually, we've lost the argument. Last, but yeah, it's just last. From Linux Nuru.
Linux Nuru, yeah.
He writes, so I've been using Banshee for 3 years, but now only because of some podcasts that I have for over 3 years worth. He's been saving them up. Let's see, he found out that Banshee is mono, shock, and crashes 6% of the time. He wants another option. He would hate to have to re-download 3 years worth of these podcasts because Space Australia and shite internet. Google has failed him. Anyone know of A, what's the best Linux podcast? That's this one. Wait, music player besides Banshee and Rhythmbox. And B, can I somehow keep what I've already downloaded? My first thought, which is not a very traditional, because most people don't consider this, is throw it at Plex and see what develops. You won't lose anything. But, everyone's like, well, Plex for video, and I use it for video. Wicked good at picking up your audio libraries and organizing them. Then it just works everywhere. But, if you're going to run, but it's not open source. And I'm like, you gotta have a little give sometimes, Stallman, so chill out.
Neither is the 3D module in your kernel that is allowing the quote-unquote open source drivers to give you full 3D acceleration. Just saying. But yeah, no, he also posted this in Chat Realm Static, and my reply to him was, Rhythmbox, VLC, what are you looking for exactly? And apparently he just wants to keep his library, which is just a matter of finding where Banshee downloaded the podcasts to, which really shouldn't be too hard. Just look in .config or .local. It's probably in there somewhere. And pull all the files out and move them to, say, an external hard drive or, say, a Plex server.
But then you're also going to have to deal with how does it organize them. That's what I'm kind of like Team Plex on this one, because Honeyplex don't give a gosh darn. You just throw it in a directory and it pulls all the metadata and organizes.
And if you have something like VLC or Rhythmbox, you can literally have the podcasts organized by separate playlists for each of the different podcasts. You can then organize each and every single episode by date, like first to last, last to first, by size, what have yous. VLC is actually a pretty convenient thing to have around.
Well, Dak brings up a name I haven't heard for billions of years.
Oh, Amarok. Yeah, Amarok technically works too, but if you're trying to get away from Banshee because of mono, you don't want Amarok because it's going to pull the KDE kitchen sink.
Yeah, Amarok used to use Amarok 1.4, so which would be the equivalent of Clementine nowadays. My question is, why don't you want to run Rhythmbox, which is like, I think would be the most logical transition, is to go from Banshee to Rhythmbox. I mean, I used to use Banshee as my main audio player, then my 50,000 track library was a bit heavy for Banshee, so I switched to Rhythmbox. It's quite easy to make the transition. They both use SQLite database for managing their data. By writing a small script, it would be quite easy to switch from one to the other, and you might not have to write a script. Then it should be even simpler. My advice would be to go with Rhythmbox.
Yeah, man, try it out. I mean, if you have some questions, thoughts, hints, allegations, or just things better left unsaid, send them to us and let us know. But that's going to be it for our show. I'm Vin Stone. You can always find me on the Twitter nets at Vin Stone, or just plus Vin Stone on the G pluses, or just type in Vin Stone on the Googs. You're going to find me. Bing will probably relink you to Barbie World or something.
Yeah, Vin's got the SC down. I, on the other hand, am Pedro Mateos, and if you type that into Google, you'll have to go to page 2 in order to find my Twitter, which is @unaccounted_for, or a couple of links down is actually my Google Plus, which is plus Pedro Mateos.
And you can find me on Twitter, which I don't use really that much these days, but I'm
Breaking, Matthew hates Twitter.
Striker on Twitter, Mathieu Commandant on Google Plus. Yeah, and you can always check out lootrace.net. I'm always most active over there.
That is brilliant. That's been our show. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we will return next Wednesday. We do this live around 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Type that into the Googs. It'll give you some idea. Or DuckDuckGo. Doesn't matter. Your ISP knows all your information anyway. Pedro and I will return Saturday to do a show only about Linux gaming. It's frightening.
Yes.
It's terrifying.
And we'll have the Canadian Svang with us. Yes.
Say bye-bye to the people.
And I won't be there. But
Hey, you'll be there in spirit.